Welcome to District Command Central, your go-to source for the latest news and updates on the Washington Commanders. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you never miss a play. Alright guys, let's dive into what's happening in Washington right now, because something's clearly off with the Commanders. And when your head coach starts openly admitting that things aren't clicking the way they should, you know it's not just the fans seeing it anymore. It's the whole locker room feeling that frustration. Dan Quinn, the guy who was brought in to change the culture, to reestablish that old-school discipline and bring that fiery defensive mindset he's famous for, just came out and revealed exactly what's holding this team back. And it's not talent, it's not effort, and it's not even about injuries. It's something a lot deeper and, honestly, a lot more frustrating, because it's something they can fix. Quinn said it himself, the Commanders aren't playing complementary football. Now, what does that even mean in football terms? Complementary football is when all three phases of the game, offense, defense, and special teams, feed off each other. When the offense scores, the defense steps up with a big stop. When the defense forces a turnover, the offense capitalizes on it. When special teams pins the opponent deep, the defense takes advantage and flips the field again. It's about rhythm, chemistry, and momentum. And Quinn's right. That's exactly what the Commanders are missing right now. Because if you look at this 3-3 record, it's not as bad as it could be, but it's also not as good as it should be. Washington easily could have been sitting at 4-2, maybe even 5-1, if they just finished drives, avoided those momentum-killing mistakes, and played the kind of connected football Quinn keeps talking about. Let's take that game against the Chicago Bears in Week 6, for example. It was a primetime game, one of those matchups where you expect a team like Washington to come out and make a statement. But instead, it was the Bears who punched them in the mouth early. And yes, the Commanders tried to rally back, but they couldn't quite sync up the way they needed to. Quinn pointed it out perfectly. There were moments in that game when the offense had a shot to put points on the board before halftime, and they just didn't. And that's where momentum shifts. You miss those chances, and it deflates your team. Then, even when the defense steps up, like Quinn mentioned, holding strong in that 2-minute drill before the half, it's almost like they're fighting uphill every time because the offense isn't rewarding that effort. And to be fair, Quinn isn't throwing anyone under the bus. He's not out here blaming Sam Howell or the offensive line or even the secondary that's given up some big plays. What he's doing is something smart coaches do. He's diagnosing a cultural problem, not just a tactical one. He's basically saying, look, we know how to play winning football. We've done it before. We just need to do it together. Last season, the Commanders were a team that thrived on that sense of unity. They won 11 games because every phase clicked. The defense was relentless, the offense controlled the clock, and the special teams unit made sure the field position battle was always in their favor. That's complementary football in action. But this year, that rhythm has been missing, and you can feel it when you watch them. The offense moves the ball decently between the 20s, but when it's time to finish drives, red zone efficiency, third down conversions, that's where things fall apart. Then you've got a defense that, for most of the season, has played solid football but gets gassed because they're constantly being sent back out there after a quick 3-and-out. It's that lack of synchronization that's killing Washington right now. Football isn't about one unit shining. It's about all three playing like one machine. Quinn knows that, and that's why you can hear the frustration in his voice when he says, we've got to lean into one another. Because that's not coach speak. That's the truth. If you think back to Quinn's days with the Falcons, especially during their Super Bowl run, you'll remember his philosophy was built around team synergy. His defenses played fast, physical, and aggressive, but they also fed off the offense's energy. When things clicked, it was beautiful. When they didn't, it got ugly fast. And that's exactly what we're seeing again here in Washington. The Commanders have flashes of brilliance, drives where Howell looks poised. The receivers are making plays, and the defense looks locked in, but then they follow that up with stretches where nothing connects. You can't build consistency like that. And in the NFL, consistency is everything. Now, it's not all doom and gloom. The fact that Quinn is openly talking about this problem this early in the season actually gives me some hope for Washington. Because identifying the issue is the first step toward fixing it. The Commanders are sitting at 3-3, and while that's middle of the pack, it's still a very manageable position, especially in an NFC that's wide open behind the top-tier teams. If they can get their complementary football back, if they can start playing as one unit again, they've got the talent to make a real push. The defense, led by studs like Jonathan Allen and Darren Payne, is capable of dominating games. The offense, with Howell developing and guys like Terry McLaurin and Jahan Dotson stretching the field, can absolutely put up points. The problem isn't that they can't, it's that they're not doing it together. And that's what's so fascinating about Quinn's comment. He's not sugarcoating it. He's saying it flat out. This team isn't connected enough. And you can tell he's itching to change that. He's one of those coaches who loves culture building. He wants that locker room to be a place where players feed off each other's energy, where every drive, every stop, every big play means something to everyone. He doesn't want a team that just reacts to what's happening. He wants one that creates the energy, that controls the tempo. That's what he means by complementary football, not just XS and OS, but mindset. Let's not forget, last season this same group was praised for their resilience. They played gritty football, winning close games, grinding out wins even when things didn't go their way. They looked like a team that was always in sync, even when the execution wasn't perfect. This year, that edge feels dulled. There's a sense of disconnect, like the offense and defense are living in two different worlds. You'll see the defense force a turnover and the offense immediately go 3 and out. Or the offense finally puts together a long touchdown drive, and then the defense gives up a big play on the very next possession. It's like a dance where no one's on beat. And let's be real, the NFL doesn't forgive teams that can't find rhythm. You either adapt or you get left behind. Quinn knows that. He's been to the mountaintop, and he's also seen what happens when a team unravels. That's why you can sense the urgency in his tone. He doesn't want to wait until week 12 to fix this. He wants it corrected now, before it snowballs into something bigger. Because if Washington can get back to playing connected football, they can still make something out of this season. 8 or 9 wins might not sound glamorous, but if they string together some momentum, especially in a division as tough as the NFC East, that could easily turn into 10 or 11 wins with the right adjustments. And speaking of the NFC East, next week's matchup is huge. The Commanders are heading to Dallas to face the Cowboys, and you know that's personal for Dan Quinn. Not only because it's a division game, but because he spent years on the Cowboys sideline as their defensive coordinator. He knows that team inside out, their tendencies, their weaknesses, their mentality. If there's ever a moment for Quinn to reignite his locker room and show what this Commanders squad is made of, it's this one. A statement win in Dallas would do more than improve their record. It would change their confidence, maybe even redefine their season. The truth is, football seasons are defined not just by talent, but by turning points. Maybe this is the wake-up call the Commanders needed. Maybe this stretch of frustration, this struggle to find cohesion, is what pushes them to finally lock in. Because Quinn's right, when Washington does play complementary football, they look like one of the most balanced teams in the league. You can see flashes of it in every game. That drive where Howell looks composed and hits McLaurin on a deep out, followed by the defense shutting down the opponent on 3 straight plays. It's there. It's real. They just have to find a way to make it consistent. At the end of the day, Dan Quinn's message isn't about blame, it's about accountability. He's challenging his team to reconnect, to trust one another again, to play not as individuals, but as a unit that believes in the same mission. It's about rediscovering the rhythm that made them special last year and refusing to accept mediocrity just because things got a little tough. The Commanders still have time. They still have the talent. And with Quinn steering the ship, they've got the leadership to right this thing before it's too late. But it all starts with one simple principle. They have to play together. That's the heartbeat of this sport. And until Washington finds that pulse again, they'll keep hovering around average. But once they do, watch out. Because this team has all the ingredients to turn 3-3 into something much bigger, something that reminds the entire league what Washington football can be when it's firing on all cylinders. If you're enjoying the coverage, make sure to smash that like button and drop a comment with your thoughts on the Commanders' latest moves. We want to hear from you. It's happening, folks, and you can feel the tremor through the NFL world. The whispers are no longer whispers. They've solidified into reality. Brian Burns, yes, the explosive edge rusher who's been terrorizing quarterbacks with a combination of speed, power, and relentless instinct, has officially inked a deal with the Washington Commanders. I know, take a deep breath because this isn't just another signing. This is the kind of move that can send shockwaves through the entire league. Imagine Dan Quinn's defensive schemes now with Burns added to the mix. Suddenly, what was already a competitive defense looks downright terrifying. The rumor mills had been spinning for weeks, with insiders dropping hints about late-night negotiations and clandestine meetings that only fueled the hype. And now it's all true. Burns in a Commander's uniform isn't just a headline, it's a statement. It's a signal that Washington is willing to make bold moves, willing to disrupt the status quo, and willing to gamble big to climb out of the mediocrity trap that has haunted them for far too long. The implications are massive, and I mean massive, because Brian Burns isn't just a player who fills a position, he's a game changer. When you talk about edge rushers in today's NFL, you're talking about athletes who can alter the trajectory of a game with one play. Burns has consistently done that throughout his career, turning what might have been a routine snap into a highlight reel sack or a turnover that swings momentum instantly. And now, he's pairing that kind of athletic prowess with Dan Quinn's defensive mind, a coach who already has a reputation for creating pressure packages that confuse quarterbacks and exploit offensive line weaknesses. The combination is electric, the kind that makes you sit up and watch every single snap, because you just know something dramatic could happen. This isn't just a new chapter for Burns or the Commanders. This is a narrative that will dominate conversations across locker rooms, sports shows, and fantasy leagues for months to come. Now, let's talk about what this means for Washington's defensive identity. Under Quinn, the team has been slowly building toward a defense that's more aggressive, more opportunistic, more dynamic, and honestly, more intimidating. But there was always a missing piece, the kind of pure pass-rushing terror that forces quarterbacks to move before they want to. That's exactly what Burns brings. You pair his athletic explosiveness with the scheme flexibility Quinn has been honing, and suddenly, opposing offenses have to rethink everything. The dropbacks are shorter, the timing is off, the play action becomes far less effective, and every snap carries the threat of a game-altering play. It's the kind of scenario that gets offensive coordinators sweating, quarterbacks overthinking, and analysts scrambling to adjust their projections midseason. And the rumor is that Washington isn't stopping here. Sources hint at further defensive maneuvers, and while nothing is confirmed yet, the mere possibility of more high-impact signings keeps the chatter alive, keeps fans buzzing, and keeps the league on edge. There's also the storyline of Burns himself. This isn't just a transactional move, it's a reinvention. After years in another system, Brian Burns is stepping into an environment where his talents might be amplified to a new level. The Commanders offer him a platform where his skill set fits like a glove, where Quinn's defensive schemes can unlock potential that might have been underutilized elsewhere. Fans are already speculating about how this will translate into numbers, sacks, tackles for loss, and even game-changing moments in primetime matchups. And let's be real, the media can't get enough of this story. Every highlight, every practice clip, every off-field comment is now under scrutiny because the excitement is palpable. People are already drawing comparisons to elite defenses of the past, dreaming of the kind of ferocious defensive unit that dominates headlines, pressures quarterbacks relentlessly, and essentially forces games to be won or lost based on how teams handle the pressure. And speaking of pressure, let's not forget the psychological effect this has on the league. When news like this drops, it's more than just talent acquisition, it's signaling. It tells rival teams that Washington is serious, that they are willing to invest in talent, and that they are aiming to compete at the highest level. The locker room energy shifts, fan expectations rise, and suddenly, the narrative around the franchise changes from underdog or middling contender to legitimate threat. Analysts, commentators, and even players from other teams will now approach the Commanders with a different mindset because Burns on this defense changes the calculus. The pass rush that was once inconsistent becomes a legitimate weapon, and the domino effect on the rest of the roster. Rookies stepping up, secondary players getting more help, linebackers freed to make plays, cannot be overstated. This is exactly the kind of move that defines seasons, the kind that makes people sit up in October and say, wait, these Commanders might actually be dangerous. Of course, no big story is complete without a little speculation about contracts, cap space, and long-term strategy. While the exact details are still under wraps, insiders suggest that this is a deal designed to maximize impact without crippling future flexibility. There's always a fine balance in the NFL between short-term dominance and long-term sustainability, and Washington seems to be threading that needle carefully. Fans are already debating whether this is the start of a defensive dynasty or a bold, high-stakes gamble that could backfire. But one thing is indisputable. The buzz is real, and it's electrifying. Every social media thread, every sports podcast, every conversation at the local sports bar is now dominated by two names, Brian Burns and Dan Quinn. The chemistry between a player and a coach is often intangible, but in this case, the signs are pointing toward fireworks. And let's not forget, the opponents are now playing catch-up, trying to figure out how to game plan against a defense that suddenly looks like it could overwhelm even the most sophisticated offenses. Let's also touch on the timing. Coming into a new season with a fresh infusion of talent is always ideal, but the narrative here is particularly juicy because it's been building slowly. The rumor mill, the leaks, the cryptic posts from insiders, they've all led to this moment where it finally clicks into place. Fans who were skeptical are now buzzing, and those who already believed in Quinn's vision feel vindicated. The energy around the team is palpable, the practice reports are being dissected, and every preseason highlight carries a sense of impending dominance. And if you think this is just about Burns individually, think again. This move has ripple effects across the roster, affecting draft strategy, free agency plans, and even coaching staff decisions. The Commanders are making a statement. They're in it to win it, and they're not afraid to shake things up. So, here we are, at the tipping point. Brian Burns in Washington isn't just news. It's the story everyone will be talking about as the NFL season approaches. The combination of elite talent, a visionary defensive coordinator in Dan Quinn, and a franchise willing to make bold moves creates a narrative that's irresistible. Rumors will continue, speculations will flourish, but the core fact remains unchanged. This defense just became a whole lot scarier. Fans will be watching every snap with heightened anticipation, analysts will be rewriting their predictions, and rival quarterbacks will be feeling a little nervous every time they drop back into the pocket. It's a thrilling, high-stakes development, and if you're a fan of chaos, intensity, and edge-of-your-seat football, you're living in a golden era of rumor-turned-reality. Brian Burns with the Commanders. Don't just take my word for it. Mark your calendars, tune into every game, and watch as a defense that was already solid transforms into something that could haunt offenses across the league. The Berberinho is real, the excitement is tangible, and this story is just beginning to unfold. Every tackle, every sack, every game-changing play will be dissected, hyped, and remembered because this is the kind of NFL narrative that makes fans cheer, rivals sweat, and the league itself a little more unpredictable. The countdown has begun, the rumors have been confirmed, and now it's time to see what happens when Brian Burns and Dan Quinn bring their combined intensity to the field. Buckle up, because the Commanders' defense just got a whole lot scarier, and the NFL world is watching in anticipation, ready to witness the rise of a defensive juggernaut that could dominate the season in ways no one expected. Thanks for tuning into District Command Central. Make sure to subscribe and follow us for all the Commanders news you need. Until next time, keep the faith and hail to the Commanders.